But it's just not equitable, but it's also not logical. It's not just incumbent upon women to pave that path for other women, but it's incumbent upon men to help create those opportunities.
For over a decade, Blake Lively has been Hollywood's golden girl, the actress who could do no wrong. She built her career on the image of effortless grace, natural charm, and a down-to-earth personality that made fans adore her and the industry embrace her. Every red carpet appearance, every interview, every social media post has reinforced the idea that she's not just talented, but universally likable. Unlike other A-list actresses, she's never been seen as controversial, never caught up in industry feuds, and never faced any significant backlash. She was, as Hollywood insiders put it, PR perfection. But now, that image is crumbling, and the truth behind her perfectly constructed persona is coming to light. Megyn Kelly has just exposed a side of Blake Lively that Hollywood has either ignored or covered up for years, one built on manipulation, control, and ruthless ambition. What was once seen as a strong, independent woman carving her own path in the industry is now being viewed as a calculated power player who bulldozes anyone who stands in her way. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to stay informed. The revelations coming out now paint a very different picture of Blake. Instead of the sweet, all-American actress fans have worshipped since her Gossip Girl days, insiders are now speaking up about a woman who strategically positions herself as the main character in every situation, on screen and off. Colleagues and former co-stars are eerily silent in the wake of the growing controversy, refusing to defend her, while industry insiders are revealing that Blake's career has been fueled by more than just talent. It's been carefully engineered through backdoor deals, power moves, and a relentless need for control. And this time, her usual tactics aren't working. The legal battle with Justin Baldoni is shining a spotlight on just how much influence Blake has tried to wield behind the scenes. From rewriting scripts to making executive decisions she wasn't hired to make, the actress is being accused of stepping far beyond her role, turning It Ends With Us into her movie while pushing out the very person who made it possible in the first place. And instead of accepting responsibility, she's doing what she does best, spinning the narrative, playing the victim, and using her industry connections to shift blame. But there's a major difference this time. Hollywood is no longer playing along. Gossip Girl co-stars who worked with her for years remain silent. It Ends With Us author Colleen Hoover has suddenly erased Blake from her social media. Even Taylor Swift, one of her closest celebrity allies, is pulling back. These aren't just coincidences. These are signs that Blake's power and influence might finally be running out. For the first time, her carefully constructed image is being challenged in a way she can't control. Her ability to manipulate the media, control the industry narrative, and silence critics is slipping away. The question now is, how much longer can she keep up the act? One thing is clear, this story is far from over. For years, Blake Lively has maintained the illusion of being Hollywood's sweetheart, but Megyn Kelly's latest takedown has ripped that facade apart. What's coming to light now isn't just a one-time incident or an isolated misstep, it's a pattern. A carefully crafted strategy of manipulation, influence, and power, plays that Blake has used to cement herself at the top while systematically pushing others down. This isn't about ambition, it's about control. And the truth is, Blake has been playing this game for much longer than people realize. Long before her current legal battle over It Ends With Us, Blake was already making moves behind the scenes to ensure she always came out on top. Take her Gossip Girl days, for example, a show that launched her to stardom and made her a household name. She admitted in a 2009 interview that she actively turned the cast against Penn Badgley, her co-star and on-screen love interest, simply because she didn't like him at first. This wasn't just a case of not getting along. She admitted to poisoning the cast against him, creating a toxic work environment and intentionally making his job harder. And for what? Just because she didn't like him? Not because he had done anything wrong, not because there was real conflict, just because she could. The pattern continued with her co-star Leighton Meester, who played Blair Waldorf. On screen, Serena and Blair were best friends, but behind the scenes, Blake reportedly resented Leighton for not chasing celebrity status the way she did. While Blake courted the media, building her brand, and making sure she was always in the headlines, Leighton focused on acting. This reportedly frustrated Blake to the point that, by the time Gossip Girl ended, the two weren't even speaking. Again, rather than being content with her own success, Blake seemed determined to ensure she remained the main star of the show, resenting anyone who refused to play into her game. And now, the same story is playing out with It Ends With Us, but this time, she took things even further. Justin Baldoni, the actor-turned-director who had spent years securing the rights to Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel, brought Blake onto the project as the lead actress. But from the moment she was cast, she began making changes, rewriting scripts, making executive decisions, and ultimately sidelining Baldoni completely. This wasn't collaboration. This wasn't creative input. This was Blake taking over. A move so blatant that Baldoni, the person who made the film possible in the first place, was forced into the background. By the time the film premiered, he wasn't just excluded from the spotlight. He was physically banned from the main event, relegated to the basement, while Blake and her team controlled everything. And when people started questioning how this had happened, Blake did what she always does, played the victim and rewrote the narrative. Suddenly, stories began circulating that she had been mistreated, that Baldoni had made her uncomfortable on set, that she was simply fighting for her voice to be heard. But the cracks in this narrative are obvious. Baldoni's production company financed the film. He secured the rights. He spent years developing it. And yet somehow Blake managed to push him out completely. This isn't just about It Ends With Us. This isn't just about Gossip Girl. This is a pattern, a blueprint that Blake has been using for years to get what she wants. And the industry is finally catching on. Her co-stars aren't defending her. Colleen Hoover is suddenly silent. Even Taylor Swift, one of her closest allies, is backing away. The people who once stood by her are beginning to distance themselves, and for the first time, Blake is losing control of the narrative. The question now is, how much longer can she keep the act going? Because from where things stand, Hollywood isn't buying it anymore. Blake Lively didn't just want to star in It Ends With Us, she wanted to own it. What started as Justin Baldoni's passion project, something he spent years developing, quickly turned into another power move for Blake. Insiders claim that from the moment she was cast, she wasn't just looking to deliver a great performance, she was laying the groundwork to seize full creative control. And the deeper you dig into what happened behind the scenes, the clearer it becomes. This wasn't about artistic vision or creative input. This was a hostile takeover. Justin Baldoni, known for Jane the Virgin, had spent years fighting to bring Colleen Hoover's beloved novel to life. His production company, Wayfarer Studios, secured the rights, and he was both the producer and director. He had a vision for the film, and for a while, everything seemed to be on track. But that changed the moment Blake entered the picture. At first, it started with small things, Blake suggesting script changes, pushing for rewrites, wanting to shape her character's story. Not uncommon for an actor in a major role. But soon, these weren't just suggestions, they were demands. She reportedly started overriding Baldoni's directorial decisions, challenging his authority on set, and making major changes without consulting him. Then came the big shift. According to production sources, Blake began pulling in her own team. Editors, producers, even executives who aligned with her vision for the film. People loyal to Baldoni suddenly found themselves pushed to the sidelines, and before long, the project no longer felt like his. He wasn't just directing the film anymore. He was being pushed out of it entirely. By the time production wrapped, it was clear to everyone. This wasn't Baldoni's movie anymore. It was Blake's. And she made sure of it. The ultimate proof? The premiere. A moment that should have been a career highlight for Baldoni turned into a humiliating reminder of how little power he had left. Multiple sources confirmed that when he arrived, he wasn't allowed on the main floor. The man who had worked for years to bring It Ends With Us to life was forced into the basement while Blake took center stage. If that wasn't enough, reports surfaced that she refused to acknowledge Baldoni at all, acting as though he was nothing more than a footnote in her project. And the media? It played right into her hands. The headlines the next day were all about Blake. Her dress, her performance, her moment. Baldoni was barely mentioned. This wasn't an accident. It was a meticulously planned effort to erase him from the story entirely. But here's where it backfired. Blake has spent years carefully managing her public image, ensuring she always comes out on top, but this time, people noticed. Fans were quick to question why Baldoni, the director, the producer, the man behind the entire film, was being so obviously sidelined. And when Blake's PR machine tried to shift the narrative by accusing Baldoni of fat-shaming her on set, the cracks in her story became impossible to ignore. Leaked texts later proved that the so-called fat-shaming incident was completely misrepresented. Baldoni, who has a known back injury, simply asked about Blake's weight before a physically demanding scene. A standard practice in stunt coordination to ensure safety, but Blake's team twisted it into something sinister, trying to frame Baldoni as a villain in an attempt to justify why she took over the movie. And yet, despite her best efforts, this time the industry isn't rallying behind her. The silence from Blake's former co-stars is deafening. Not a single Gossip Girl cast member has come to her defense. Leighton Meester, Penn Badgley, and even supporting cast members have stayed quiet, acting as if Blake doesn't exist. The same is happening now with It Ends With Us. Colleen Hoover, who once praised Blake publicly, has quietly erased all mentions of her from social media. Even Taylor Swift, arguably Blake's most famous ally, has started to pull back. Blake may have thought she could rewrite the story in her favor, just as she has in the past, but this time, it's not working. The public is paying attention, and the truth is coming out. Her usual power plays aren't going to save her now. For years, Blake Lively has been able to control her own story. She's navigated Hollywood scandals, positioned herself as a likable power player, and built a brand so polished that any bad press just seemed to bounce right off her. But now, with her career under the microscope, old footage is resurfacing, and it's proving what insiders have been whispering for years. Blake Lively isn't the woman she spent her career pretending to be. One clip, in particular, has taken over the internet. A 2016 press junket for Café Society, where Blake is seen humiliating a Swedish journalist, Kirsty, on camera. The moment starts off harmless enough. Kirsty congratulates Blake on her pregnancy. But instead of smiling and moving on like any professional would, Blake looks her up and down and fires back, saying, "Congrats on your baby bump too." The problem? Kirsty wasn't pregnant. The journalist later revealed that not only was she not expecting a child, but she physically could not have children. What should have been an easy professional interview turned into a public humiliation, all because Blake decided to make a cruel, unnecessary remark. And it wasn't just a thoughtless mistake, it was intentional. Blake wasn't laughing or joking. The footage makes it clear. She was cold, dismissive, and entirely aware of what she was doing. To make matters worse, her co-star Parker Posey sat beside her, laughing along and feeding into the high school bully energy that made the moment even more uncomfortable. For years, this clip was buried. The media never picked up on it. It was just another moment of casual cruelty from a star who had the power to keep the cameras focused on her best angles. But now, it's being seen in a completely different light. The resurfaced footage shatters the image Blake has built. The woman who preaches about female empowerment, body positivity, and kindness is the same person who publicly mocked another woman about her body, on camera, without hesitation, and without a shred of remorse. The timing of this scandal couldn't be worse for Blake. With her reputation already in freefall due to the It Ends With Us controversy, this clip is just another piece of evidence showing that Blake's carefully curated public image has always been just that, an image. The internet isn't buying the PR spin anymore. And yet, instead of acknowledging the backlash or attempting to take responsibility, Blake's team immediately tried to change the conversation. Within 48 hours of the Café Society interview going viral, a new story popped up. Blake was accusing Justin Baldoni of making her uncomfortable on set, claiming he had fat-shamed her during production. The timing was too convenient to ignore. But here's where it completely backfired. Instead of making Baldoni the villain, it only highlighted Blake's hypocrisy. The same woman who was suddenly claiming she had been body shamed on a film set was the exact same person who had mocked a journalist's body to her face, on video, without a second thought. It's a level of hypocrisy that even the most carefully controlled PR campaign can't explain away. Fans started calling out the double standard immediately. If Blake was truly so offended by weight comments, why had she been perfectly comfortable making them herself? And if Baldoni really had been cruel to her, why did she wait until her own reputation was in jeopardy to bring it up? People are starting to put the pieces together. The pattern is undeniable. Blake Lively knows how to manipulate the media, shift the narrative, and rewrite history when it benefits her. But this time, her usual tactics aren't working. Her former co-stars are staying silent. Colleen Hoover has distanced herself. Even Taylor Swift, arguably her most powerful ally, is no longer publicly backing her up. Hollywood is watching, and for the first time, the industry isn't rushing to defend her. Blake Lively spent years controlling the narrative, but now, the truth is finally catching up to her. In Hollywood, silence is often the loudest statement of all. Blake has spent years carefully crafting her reputation, making sure she was always seen as the sweet, charming, effortlessly likable star who could do no wrong. But now, with mounting evidence of manipulation, career sabotage, and power plays that went too far, that image is shattering. She has spent her career taking control of sets, of films, of relationships, and of the media. But now, she's no longer the one in control. Her Hollywood empire is crumbling, and this time, there's no PR spin that can save her. Let us know what you think in the comments.